of women in sport.
Kia ora, I'm Zoe George and welcome to the December episode of Fair Play, a podcast covering women in sport from athletes and results to current affairs and issues. This podcast is made in association with WiSP Sports, Locker Room and RNZ. If you're into podcasts as much as we are, check out RNZ for politics, crime and lifestyle podcasts. And if you want your sports injection, check out WiSP Sports and Locker Room for everything to do with women in sport. This month, we reflect on the most important sports stories from the last 12 months, including netball, cricket and pay parity. MP and former Black Fern Louisa Wall gives us a glimpse into what to expect from the government in 2020. WiSP Sports Chris Stafford gives us an update on the US women's football team's fight for equal pay. White Ferns' Sophie Devine reflects on her recent success at the Women's Big Bash in Australia. And we'll hear from Para-climber Rachel Maia. And of course, it's not fair play without an update from the toilets at the Basin Reserve. It only seems fitting to have today's co-host in again, as she's one of the driving forces behind Fair Play. Suzanne McFadden is the editor at Locker Room, a sports news site attached to newsroom.co.nz. It features a whole lot of women's sports content, including Fair Play, and she came on board with us earlier this year in a new partnership. Kia ora! Always lovely to have you in the studio, Suzanne.
Kia ora, Zoe. And can I just say what a Christmas cracker of a episode you have for us this month.
Oh, thanks. Well, what a year 2019 has been. Before we crack into our highlights and maybe some lowlights, interesting announcement from the Minister for Sport, Grant Robertson, this week. He and the Australian Minister for Youth and Sport are collaborating to put a bid in for the FIFA Women's World Cup. Suzanne, what do you think our chances are?
Well, I'm always going to say that, I think we've got a great chance. But then they're up against some tough competition, the Japanese especially.
Oh, yeah.
But getting together with Australia is obviously going to boost our chances. New Zealand's got a really good track record with FIFA for holding big tournaments. I mean, not one this big, but they've had youth tournaments in the past. Australia haven't, but they've got, a great record of holding big events, Olympics and other world championships. I think we've got a good chance. And, it might be that if it's a joint bid, the US women will have to play in Australia because they've got the biggest stadiums, because whenever they play, they'll attract huge crowds that the likes of we've never seen before. But, we'll still have some amazing football here. So I really, really hope it happens.
Yeah, me too. Wouldn't that be fantastic, off the back of Women's Rugby World Cup, Women's Cricket World Cup, then to have the FIFA Women's Football World Cup. Oh, it's just a trifecta. It's perfect.
Yeah, it would. It's just unfortunate we didn't get the Netball World Cup.
Yeah, damn. Yeah. Oh, well, next time. Speaking of the Minister for Sport, Grant Robertson also announced an additional $2.7 million in October for women in high-performance sports leadership and coaching. And it was actually a year on from the release of the government's Women and Girls in Sports strategy, which gave this group $10 million over 3 years. Is this enough, Suzanne?
I always say that it's a start. They're actually moving in the right direction now, I think, with organising things. Things are happening now. In the first year, of course, it's just sorting things out, getting the right people in the right positions. But now they're putting the money into getting women into positions on NSOs around the country, getting more women's coaches. Yeah, it's good to see. But, of course, there are other areas that I think could do with an injection right now.
Yeah, where do you think that funding should go?
Well, definitely the media.
Well, of course we're going to say that. And actually, that was going to be my next question. Should New Zealand media get an incentive or a benefit for upping their women's sport content?
I think they should, actually. If you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said no. But things are changing. And the way journalism is funded now is changing. And we are seeing, slight inroads into the coverage of women's sport, but there needs to be more. The big players still need to cover more women's sport. And, an incentive from the government may be what it will take. It was on the cards. We've spoken to the minister about this, but the $3 million that was originally put aside. Some of that was going to go to media, has gone to Sport New Zealand and a advertising campaign.
Right.
So, he's shown that, that 10 million isn't the be-all and end-all. So by giving that extra 2.7 million, it's kind of sent a message that there will be more money for women's sport in the future. So, we won't stop pushing for it, Zoe?
No, absolutely not. Well, I wanted to know what 2020 might look like in this landscape, so I caught up with Member of Parliament and former Black Fern Louisa Wall, who is a Fair Play regular. I started by asking her, though, what her sporting highlight was from 2019.
Oh, look, it has to be Nolene Todua, 11 months, not even making the final, going to the World Championships in Liverpool, and New Zealand are the world champions in netball. I think it's a phenomenal story for me. It's kind of parallel to Cool Runnings, except we actually win. And I don't say that flippantly, because I think what she did was phenomenal. I think an ability of a coach to pull together in some ways was a disparate and dispirited group of athletes, and to, I guess, reignite the passion for them to work as a team, because we all know that you can't win world championships unless you play as a team, and just her ability to inspire, to motivate, and based around players like Laura Langman, Maria Flau, and Casey Kopua. I mean, honestly, if we hadn't seen it, we never would have believed it. So that's my story, probably of the decade, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's amazing, coaching story. I hope, for me, Noel should win the Halberds overall, not just coach, but she should win the whole thing.
Well, she has injected this, as you said, the spirit back into the sport and back into the team this year. I mean, last year we saw Katrina Rore just look absolutely defeated after they got completely walked all over by some teams that weren't Australia or England. I mean, they walked over us too. But to see them come back and fight back in the way that they did, I think it was probably one of the most exciting netball finals I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, we have to think back to the first game of the World Champs. They played Malawi. Obviously, the last time they played Malawi beat us. And we were there. Our Pali Ferns went over to the UK deliberately to support our Silver Ferns. And I do want to take the opportunity to acknowledge Chris Major from Sky and Sky's support of our ability to do that, because they're members of our Parliamentary Sports Trust, and for us it's all about ensuring, from my perspective, that women's sport is part of, I guess, what we provide for within the context of Parliament. Historically it's been rugby, and I know our team went over to Japan and we're part of a tournament over there, but we also went to the UK Parliament and played a team from Australia. So we do this because from our perspective, sport provides an amazing context to develop women and girls. And we know through sport and the values that you learn, teamwork, but fundamentally creating, I call us strong and stroppy women, to be honest. Because to be competitive in sport, you have to believe in yourself. You have to have desire. You have to be competitive. So these traits are what we want women to have throughout society. And I'm still playing, although I've had a knee operation just recently, but my goal is for us to also go over to the Com Games, which obviously will be an interesting opportunity for us, and then Cape Town in 4 years' time, because I'm already back-to-back Silver Ferns, and I think we can do it.
Oh, I think we can do it too. It's also been a big year for the government. In late 2018, Minister for Sport Grant Robertson announced, I think it was a $10 million injection into women's sport over 3 years. Then in November, he announced another additional $2.7 million for high-performance coaching and pathways for women. What's 2020 going to bring?
I think what 2020 will bring is an opportunity for organisations like WiSP, Women in Sport Aotearoa, in partnership with the International Working Group, which will obviously host the International Women in Sport Conference in 2022, to further consolidate and develop on that investment from the government. I mean, I think the opportunity that we have to showcase women's sport in the near future with the Women's Cricket World Cup, with obviously the Women's Rugby World Cup, and obviously an emphasis from the government's perspective on not only providing opportunities for women and girls to play sport, but for us to also contribute through our coaching, through being administrators and governors. Because one of the other things that Minister Robertson announced was a requirement for our national sporting organisations to look at 50-50 and have gender equality in terms of governance roles. So it's incredibly exciting, and the reality is we have the capacity. There are so many women who have used, and I'm proud to be one of them, used sport to then springboard into other areas of New Zealand life, whether it be politics or academia or business or whatever it might be. I think the traits that I talked about earlier then set us up for, I think, being really productive and contributing to society in so many other ways.
That was Member of Parliament and former Black Fern Louisa Wall. Suzanne McFadden is our co-host today. Suzanne, her story was not only the story of 2019, but of the decade, and that was the Silver Ferns winning the World Cup under Nolene Taurua. What do you reckon?
I totally agree. You know, if you were writing a fairy tale about a netball team, that's probably how it would have unfolded. You know, they were the Cinderella of the netball world, the situation that they were in, that they'd got themselves into. If you'd asked me 12 months before they won if it was possible for them to win, I would have laughed and said no. But as Nolene Taurua kind of developed this relationship with the team, with Netball New Zealand, when she came in as coach, the odds upped that they could win it. I'm just so impressed with what she did, but also the way that the players responded to what she asked of them, because she believed in them. She told them over and over that she believed that they could do it, and that's what had been missing. So she deserves all the accolades that she can get.
Yes, I mean, as I was talking with Louisa, you know, they were being beaten by Malawi and they turned it right around. It was just incredible. What do you think 2020 is going to look like for the Ferns?
I think it's going to look different, and not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, Maria Falau has just retired from all netball.
Yes.
And the trip to England for the Northern Series in January, there will be some real experienced players missing. So Laura Langman and Katrina Rode have both taken a sabbatical from that series. You know, they're tired. It was a huge year, especially for Rode. I mean, gosh, she was her story alone
amazing.
was incredible. Yeah.
Amazing.
It gives some, I was going to say some new faces, but they're not necessarily new. The players who've come in, Maya Wilson, Whitney Souness, we've seen them play before, Camille Rapoi. It will be a new look team again, but that's not a bad thing, because Australia will have a new look team, England will have a new look team. It's just something that always happens after a big event like the World Cup.
And in other netball-related news, it's very exciting to hear former Australian shooter Vicky Wilson signed on with the Central Pulse as the shooting specialist coach.
She's an incredible player, was an incredible player, but she's also an amazing coach.
Yeah.
And she's done coaching in New Zealand before. She's done some work with the Silver Ferns. And I think the Pulse are a very, very smart team, and they bring in really clever specialist coaches to help them. And although they didn't win the Super Club tournament in Nelson last week, they will be the team to beat, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. As a huge Central Pulse fan, I look forward to seeing how they go. It was also really good to hear from Louisa Wall that the government will be working with Women in Sport Aotearoa in 2020 as they work towards this big conference we're hosting in 2022, and about the importance of having girls and women engage with sport. Not only does it teach us important life skills, but that it also creates, quote, strong and stroppy women.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Suzanne?
Yeah, I do. And Lewis is a great example of that. Yeah, it just gives, young girls incredible life skills. And no matter at what level of sport that they're playing, it just teaches them about teamwork and about responsibility and bouncing back and Yeah, I think she's totally right.
Yeah, I got called sassy and bolshy the other day, which I thought was hilarious. So
Was this while you were playing sport?
no, off the court. I think it's so true though. We do learn things like teamwork and leadership and respect, and also how to look after ourselves and self-care and all of those good things that come from being involved with sport, and also connecting with amazing people. Louisa talked about pathways in sport. Yes, you can go off and be an athlete, but actually for both of us, it's brought us into this amazing career that we have.
Since we started Locker Room, and I have met so many amazing people, most of them women, but made contacts with people that I never thought I'd meet. But also from every one of those people, you learn something. And that's why I do this job.
Well, let's move on. A big theme this year has been women's worth in sport, particularly around pay. Just last month, the Australian Football Organisation signed an agreement for the players to have equal pay. New Zealand did it the year before, but the fight for fair play and fair pay in sport came into stark focus at the Women's Football World Cup when the crowd chanted equal pay to the heads of FIFA. The issue has progressed from there. So what's happening now, and what impact has the US football team had on this issue? Chris Stafford is the executive producer of Fair Play and founder of WiSP Sports, one of the largest women in sport media networks in the world, and she joined us via Skype. Kia ora, Chris.
Kia ora, Zoe and Suzanne. Greetings. It's good to be back on the show.
Give us an update. What's been going on?
Well, as you said, the women's soccer team here made a tremendous impact, not just winning the World Cup, but what they brought home here to the States, Zoe, and the impact that it's had way beyond the game. I think we've talked about this before, but you mentioned, of course, the chance of equal pay, and that's resonated across the country. The impact that they've had has been phenomenal, within the media and sponsorship and beyond. They've really made themselves celebrities. But in terms of the lawsuit that was filed back in March, that's now been regarded as a class action lawsuit. So it's a gender discrimination lawsuit. Now it will proceed as a class action. That was granted to them earlier last month, I believe it was, that was declared, that a judge had declared that that's the way it would proceed. It is scheduled at the moment, or at least it was when it was filed back in March, to go to court in May 2020. So whether it will actually go to court or whether the US Soccer Federation will settle, it remains to be seen. They've still got time to do that. The girls are making a lot of noise, as I said, around the country in the media. Every day you see them now doing something, not just to maintain their profile off the pitch and out of season, but I think the momentum that they've built up has been phenomenal.
What about pay laws over in the States? What do they say? Because here in New Zealand, we have the Equal Pay Act that was from 1970-something off the top of my head that says that you can't pay men and women differently for the same job. And it could be argued representing your national country, playing a sport for them, is the same job, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the suit apparently alleges that US soccer's payment practices amount to federal discrimination by paying the women less than the men. And I believe it was for substantially equal work and denying them at least equal playing, training, the travel conditions and the way the game's promoted and the support systems that they have and the basic development for the games. I mean, it's just basic terms and conditions of employment that should be equal to the men's. And that's all they're asking, and they have proved what they're capable of now with 4 World Cups, 4 Olympic medals, I think it is. I mean, it's phenomenal.
How are other sports bodies reacted to this in the United States?
Well, I think they're all watching this with interest. The same, as what's been happening in other sports around the country, around the world, rather. You mentioned Australia, England too, their cricket. There are, this like a drip, drip, drip effect, isn't it? Slowly, these are coming to the fore. And we're seeing examples around the world in different sports, and I think other sports are watching too. And you look at the gender equality as well, and the noises that's being made for gender equality and equal representation on federations and governing bodies of sport. And I know my colleague Nancy Gillan from Inside the Games, she wrote a piece recently about that, had a real go at the national federations just within a week ago, I think it was. And they've responded. Some of them are responding and say, putting their hands up and saying, yes, we are now striving for equality. And yes, we do have more women on our boards. And so I think it is a drip, drip, drip effect, but it's slow, but it is happening. It is slow and it's way overdue, as we all know.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on this space. It's fascinating. What have some of your other highlights been for 2019?
Well, Zoe, I was thinking about this, how we were going to name as our athlete of the year, our team of the year, and our coach of the year this year. And I have this conversation almost every day, and I cannot get away from what the US women's soccer team did. And I'm thinking, well, I can't have the team and the coach and the athlete all be from soccer, right? There's a lot more been happening, and not least of all in netball with the World Cup. Look at the momentum that event alone got in England. I mean, that was tremendous. And I know netball, we're talking about Commonwealth countries here, but it is the fastest growing team sport in England for sure. And they say, I don't know if you've any stats to back this up, but in the world, it is the fastest growing team sport. So there's a lot of movement here, and especially I think in rugby and cricket as well, the mainstream sports, but also in some of the minority sports as well. I mean, there's been highlights wherever you look, and sailing we followed, of course. We've got tremendous examples of women succeeding now, not least of all on the back of the Volvo Ocean Race, which is now called the Ocean Race. There'll be another one coming up in a year's time. Women are doing amazing things in so many different sports. And I think they are slowly, but we keep saying it's too slow. We want it to happen faster, but it is moving. It is moving in the right direction.
2020 is another big year for sport. We've got the Olympic Games and the Para Games in Tokyo starting in July and running through to early September. What are our predictions from there, do we think?
Well, I think, again, Tokyo is going to be an interesting one because they're telling us that they're going to have equality. Have you heard that? There's going to be gender parity at Tokyo. Not sure if they're going to achieve it, but that's what they're striving for, 50-50.
Well, actually, Suzanne, I think, was it our last Games team? There were actually more female athletes than there were males, or it was really close.
And in at the Rio Olympics as well.
Yeah, so we were well ahead. Yeah. I know that the IOC have indicated they actually want more female journalists to go and are putting together something to allow that to happen, because at the moment they found, I think it was at Rio or one of the other games, that 80% of sports journalists covering the Olympics on the ground there, 80% were men. And they want to get that 50-50 as well. So that's also, I think they should just send all three of us, personally.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to be prepared for a lot of very high tech that's going to be happening around the Tokyo Olympics. I don't know if you followed this. There's going to be robots doing things for you and helping you with your luggage at the airport. There's going to be all kinds of high tech that's going to be introduced to these Tokyo Olympics, which is going to be pretty mind-blowing, I think, if you're going to be on the ground there and visiting. I think the concern, and we have this at so many Olympic Games, so many major championships, is the climate. It's not as if they didn't know what the climate was going to be like at that time of year. They've moved some of the events up to Sapporo, to get away from that heat and humidity. But it's still going to impact a lot of the athletes. And, of course, as you know, I'm concerned for the horses too. And that's going to be an issue. As much as you can prepare for it. And I was talking to a field hockey player from Ireland, one of the Irish hockey team members, just today. And she said they're in heat chambers now, training in heat chambers. Wow. There's a lot of work that can be done to prepare. And it just shows you the lengths to which these nations will go to prepare their athletes. But I still think it takes a lot out of them, and there's things that could have been done ahead of time before selecting, a country where the climate is just going to be so difficult for athletes and horses.
That's WiSP Sports Chris Stafford, and Suzanne McFadden is our co-host today. Another group of female athletes who said show me the money this year were the New Zealand women's cricketers. In August, a new 3-year agreement was signed which saw the number of centrally contracted female players increase from 15 to 17 with a base retainer of $44,000 to $64,000. 8 development contracts were offered along with 54 domestic contracts, with these players being paid, if you can call it that, for the first time. Those at the domestic level will receive $3,200 for the entire season. Male domestic players have a base retainer of $27,000 to $54,000 plus match fees. Many of our top players are going abroad to play in T20 competitions, which is bringing in big crowds, big coverage and big money. Not only do they get to play against the world's best, they also get a nice boost to their pay packets. White Fern's Sophie Devine is one of them. She's had an absolute stellar Big Bash that finished last week in Australia. She was with the Adelaide Strikers and was named Player of the WBBL, coming away with more than 700 runs. She also broke the record for the most sixes, 28 in total from 14 games, including 5 in consecutive deliveries, the most by a player, either male or female, in a Big Bash series. Kia ora, Sophie.
G'day, Zoe. How are you going?
Good. So what's the secret to hitting the perfect six?
I have no idea. I really wish I knew and I could do it every single ball. But no, it's certainly something that I guess unfortunately has always been a part of my game, the power hitting side of things. But yeah, something seemed to really click this Big Bash.
Yeah, what an incredible Big Bash it's been. I guess you're hoping to have that form continue on to the domestic season here in New Zealand and then on to the White Ferns in the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a great start to the summer for me. Obviously, I had a pretty quiet winter. For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been going over sort of playing in the UK, or we've had sort of White Ferns tours, so I actually didn't have anything for about 6 months. I was pretty nervous leading into the Big Bash, but look, it was a fantastic tournament, and we've got a big summer coming up. Obviously, Super Smash at home, and then we lead into a series against South Africa, followed up by the big one, the World T20 in Australia.
Yes, that will be exciting. The last World T20, do we dare talk about it? The White Ferns didn't go so well. So what's the goal for March this year? End of February, right? It starts?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, look, I think we're really excited. Obviously, there's been a bit of change in and around New Zealand cricket. Obviously, the MOU has come in earlier this year, which has offered more players, more contracts and more money, which sort of helps us spend more time on our cricket, which is what we wanted. And as well, we've obviously got Bob Carter joins the team now as head coach. He sort of filled in at the back end of last summer, and he's brought a lot of experience and some really clear plans that he hopes can help us get over the line in February, March.
What's the team looking like leading into this series that you've got in here in New Zealand against South Africa?
Yeah, look, I think it's really exciting. I think one in particular for me is the inclusion of Rachel Priest back into the team. She's back in the squad for the first time in, I think, 2 years, and she's someone that's performed regularly across all formats in different competitions around the world. So we're certainly really excited to welcome her back into the squad. And I think the fantastic thing we've seen with the start of the domestic competition here in New Zealand is there's players that are really putting their hand up. Obviously, Katie Gurry has scored over 300 runs, I think, in 3 games for Northern Spirit. And, you know, there's a lot of players that are really putting pressure on the incumbents in the side.
Well, I guess as well, this is where you talked about the MOU before, the Memorandum of Understanding, and these new contracts, and domestic players are getting contracts as well. So they now actually have a little bit of space there to take some leave from their day jobs, dedicate themselves to cricket, and then that kind of pushes you guys up, doesn't it? The whole pressure just continues.
Yeah, it does. Look, and this is something that we've been asking for a while now. Obviously, we've seen it with Australia and England, and we've seen the success that both those teams have had and the strength of their domestic competition. So we're really excited that New Zealand Cricket got on board with the Players Association and we're able to work something out. But exactly like you say, it means that girls are able to put away the workbooks a little bit more and get out the cricket bats and train just that little bit extra time, whether that's, you know, a lot of the girls still do have jobs on the side because the money unfortunately isn't, I guess, at a stage now where you can do solely cricket. I think, you know, there is a few of us that are able to do that, but certainly it's enabled a lot of the females to spend a bit more time, not just, I guess, on the cricket skills, but everything that comes alongside it. So it's the mental side of the game, it's the physical side in particular, being able to get to the gym, work on your strength and conditioning, which I think will have a massive impact on how we want cricket to be played in this country.
White Ferns all-rounder Sophie Devine is our guest today. We're heading into the domestic season as well at the moment here in New Zealand. Will we see you playing domestic cricket this summer?
Yeah, look, really excited to be involved with the Wellington Blaze again. It will probably mostly be with the Super Smash, which is obviously the T20 competition here, which obviously kick-started just over the weekend actually. So we play 7 more games around the country, and we're playing at quite a few venues alongside the men, which I think is fantastic, as well as on TV, which again is a massive push from New Zealand cricket to raise the stakes behind the women's game. And it's really exciting times. We've got all White Ferns players back involved. There's a couple of overseas players as well, which I think is really important to raising the standard of the game.
Absolutely. So we're heading into the T20, which is going to be in Australia. There's still a big gap between prize money between men and women. Is that important to you?
Yes and no. Obviously, prize money is sort of the pot at the end of it. That if you're lucky enough to win the tournament, then that's sort of a nice reward. And I guess on the negative side, though, yeah, as you say, it's no way near as much as the men get. But I know Cricket Australia, I think if the Australian women team win, they're going to match whatever the difference is between the men's and the women's program, which I think is great from Cricket Australia to get in behind and show that they really want that equality, I think, between the men's and women's program, because at the end of the day, we're both playing cricket and there shouldn't be too much difference for that. So, look, I think there's certainly work still to be done, but little, I guess, shows like from Cricket Australia to invest in the game is really important.
And we're seeing big investments in the women's game from India as well. You've benefited from that this year too, haven't you?
Yeah, I was really fortunate. I went over and played, I guess, in the women's IPL. We know how popular the men's IPL has been going on for, I think, over 10 years now, and obviously the money and everything else that's involved, but it really is like a religion over there. The people are crazy about cricket. So I was, really lucky to go over and play in a 3-team competition this year, which they're certainly hoping to grow that every year. And, I think we had for the final 15,000 people in at the ground, which just shows that there really is an appetite for women's sport over there.
I know that you're at the White Ferns camp and I'm going to let you go very soon, but a couple more questions. Amy Satterthwaite is due to have a baby anytime soon, so who's going to captain the team at the T20?
Yeah, they're still working through that process. Obviously, because we don't have any cricket, I guess, until January, they're really making sure that they do that process right by the team and making sure they get the right person in place. Obviously, a big loss to lose Amy, but really exciting. I know the whole team is super chuffed for her and can't wait for the arrival of their little one.
Preparations are underway for the 2021 Women's Cricket World Cup, which we're hosting here in New Zealand. How's it going for the White Ferns? What's the feeling like in the camp in the build-up to that?
Yeah, look, it's something as soon as we saw that the tournament was going to be hosted by New Zealand, a lot of us were really excited about that opportunity. Obviously, the last time we hosted a World Cup, Women's World Cup, was back in 2000 and we won it. So there's certainly a huge level of excitement and we know that New Zealand cricket are really getting in behind, and it's a good busy time for women's sport. Obviously, the Rugby World Cup for women as well is going to be played in 2021. So I think there's some really exciting opportunities to come from that with hosting 2 World Cups in the same year in the same country. But I know we've got obviously a World Cup happening next year, and then obviously our attention will turn to 2021. But it's awesome, and we really want to see that the public and fans, media, everyone gets in behind it.
So, Sophie, other than cricket, what has been your sporting highlight story of 2019?
Geez, this is tough. I think for me, seeing the Silver Ferns win the World Cup was just unbelievable. Obviously, they've been under the pump for quite a while now, and to see Nolene Taurua come in and I guess change that team. They always had the potential and were always knocking on wood, but to come up against, such a strong Australian side that has dominated them for so long, obviously the English as well, really strong, and to see them prevail with the old dinosaurs as well, I think for me that's something that really motivates me, seeing older players, experienced players giving back to the side, and to see them take home the trophy it was really inspiring.
That was White Ferns all-rounder Sophie Devine. Just incredible, don't you think, co-host Suzanne McFadden?
Oh, she blows me away. She is a dynamo. But she's a great example of, a woman who's playing incredible sport, really entertaining, really strong, sassy, which is just as entertaining as a male cricketer.
Oh, yeah.
And, she could probably play in the Super Smash and hold her own against male cricketers. So, she should be paid the same as her male counterparts.
Yeah, well, some of those sixes that she's smashing around are going, they measured it and it would be all the way up through the stand at Eden Park and, it would clear the ropes at the MCG. You are talking about a big hitter here. So, I mean, come on. Some of these female players as well, these female cricketers are bowling faster than a lot of the men.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So, lots of arguments there. Actually, last week, Sophie spoke up about having women's test cricket back again. We used to play test cricket and then it was removed, was it in the 90s, early 2000s?
2004 was the last time that the White Ferns played a test.
Is this something we should do?
I think so. And I think most of the players, the current players, want to do it because it's, a quintessential part of cricket, isn't it? And I know that, New Zealand cricket has argued when they've been asked, why don't you bring back 3-day tests for women? They say it's a money issue, that you'd need to have first-class domestic competition that was really strong to prepare the players for a test series. And that's a heavy financial burden, and you're taking money away from other things like T20 if you're doing that. But I think we owe it to the players. If they'd like to play it, I'd go and watch it, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely be there. Shortly, we'll be talking about my highlight of the year. But, Suzanne, what's been some of yours, other than netball and pay equity talks and cricket?
It's been amazing to see the Black Ferns continue on in their incredibly... the sevens in particular, and they are going to be real gold medal contenders in Tokyo. They want to avenge that silver medal that they won in Rio.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, going to be exciting watching them. There's been some amazing individual female performances this year, and not necessarily in the mainstream sports. You've got Danielle McKenzie winning the Ocean Canoe Racing World Championship, and she's only just started doing long distance paddling. Luca Jones again doing so well in canoe slalom. Michelle Montague winning an MMA world title. It's just been a fantastic year. There's two young women who I think are going to make a huge impression in the future, and that's Alice Robinson in skiing and Jessie Smith in BMX, and I think those are two names that we will be talking about a lot in the future.
Absolutely. My highlight of the year was actually talking with Para-climber Rachel Maia, who decided to amputate her leg. We featured her journey in the April episode of Fair Play, which involved visiting her in the hospital 48 hours after she had her left leg removed just below the knee. Let's have a listen.
And then the nurse came in to do some pre-op bits and pieces, and she sort of just reached out with this lovely bright pink sticker to put on my wristband, and I saw it and just recoiled, like everything in me just shot straight back up the other side of the bed, and I was just like, you just stop, no, and then I burst into tears, and it was a sticker that said, please return body parts. And so for me it was a bit of a trigger that this is really happening, and I mean, this was my choice, and I'm so proud of myself for making this choice, and it's been so well thought through, and I've prepared for it as well as anyone could prepare. I've been really blessed to have that opportunity to take the time and to put support in place and post-op care things in place and little things along the way to make it fun. But in that moment right there, it just was... it hit me quite hard.
It sinks in, doesn't it?
Yes, it sinks in, yeah, and you can't run from it. I mean, you can crawl up the bed and tell her to put her sticker somewhere else, but it just was one of those moments where you were like, oh yeah, okay, I've got about 15 minutes left, and then it's gone.
Rachel Maia has this incredible attitude, something that we can all learn from, and not long after that interview aired, she went on to compete at Nationals and then on to Worlds.
Unbelievable.
Amazing. And she joins us now on the phone. Kia ora, Rachel.
Afternoon, Zoe.
So, slightly morbid question, but...
Oh, you love leading with those.
What did you do with your leg?
My leg, the big question. Look, it's actually currently sitting in my wardrobe, believe it or not. In a small container that looks not dissimilar to a coffee can cup, so you would not want to get them mixed up.
So you had it cremated?
I did. It was one of the parts of an amputation that I struggled with quite a lot. I didn't really feel super comfortable with it just being chucked out as waste with the hospital. I don't know, however they do it. I guess it's such a huge part of my journey and how I've become, and becoming a para-athlete and becoming Maia. So I was a bit unsure, and I felt like cremating it and having it sit around just gave me a little bit of time to think about whether there was something significant I want to do with it, or, as I joke quite often, whether I'll just one day RIP, rest in pieces. And
you picked it up from a crematorium here in Wellington a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, yep. I took a wee photographer with me in case I was write a book one day, and wandered down to pick that up. And I did think he was holding coffee when I opened the door and went in, but no, it was just my leg.
Your life. I remember sitting next to you 48 hours after that surgery, and we were sitting there chatting away, and we just heard a little bit of that. Your life has changed so much since then, hasn't it?
Look, it's changed massively, but I think all the significant changes have come through all the small ones. And when I think about why I did this and what my goals were, yes, there's some huge goals out there. I 100% want to be the first athletes in New Zealand, be it able or disabled, to bring home a medal in climbing. But for me, the journey was always more about those little ones with my kids and the things that we can do and the goals that we can have together. And the other things that have been, I guess, highlights of my year, along with competing and performing really well in that. But yeah, just the togetherness that it's given me with my kids. I'm absolutely loving it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And that time between amputation and competing was quite short. Was that too much pressure to put on yourself to achieve and go back and do that? Because I think most people would have been like, no, it's okay, you just rest for a bit. But not you.
Yeah, I guess maybe 11 weeks, 12 weeks until Nationals. Wasn't a long rest. I might have had borderline pneumonia somewhere along the way in there. And then to World Champs in France, it was just under 5 months. So certainly that was a lot of pressure. And I guess one thing I'm learning about myself is I do thrive in that environment. Maybe when you live in the crux of a climb, we call that, the most difficult move. When you're kind of in that zone all the way through life, you just get quite comfortable there. Yeah, a lot of pressure, but I wouldn't change it. I'm really glad I did it. And I think that it sets me up really well to succeed in the future because I've had this run at it. There won't be another World Champs for 2 years. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity to see how I could perform against other amputees. I didn't expect to come forth to perform so well. That was a huge bonus.
Are you climbing with a prosthetic now? What's happening?
At the moment, and when I've competed this year, I've climbed without a prosthetic, so I just take it off and sort of chuck it as far away from the wall as I can so it's not a landing hazard, and crawl back to it later.
Oh, wow.
A little bit lighter.
Just chuck my leg over here, it's fine. And then 2020, what should we expect from you? Are we going to see you climbing to great heights again this year?
Oh, look, I hope so. I'm just in the process of trying to align my training with bigger goals. So obviously I'd love to podium on the international circuit, and that hasn't been done by a New Zealander before. So I'd absolutely love that. But it is difficult with no training wall here in Whanganui, and now the road to the closest training wall, which is a 3.5-hour round trip, is sort of washed out as well. So just looking to resource a boulder wall in my sheds and level up a little bit, and then hopefully a podium either at the World Cup in France in July, or obviously the following year we'll have another World Champs, and that's where I'd really, really like to bring something shiny and yellow.
I think you can do it.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah, and that story, that interview that we did earlier in the year, how has it changed your life?
It really did help me to feel a bit more comfortable with maybe the vulnerability that I do show when I'm public speaking, because I never wanted to project that these things are easy and that these goals are not complex and not difficult and don't have their own heartbreak. I have always wanted to keep my speaking quite raw, so certainly being a little bit high on morphine and interviews in hospital keeps it pretty real.
Yeah.
The opening doorways for more of those public speaking events, and I've absolutely loved that, and I hope that I can go into more of that
as time goes on, I really love those opportunities just to, I guess, get up and be myself. And when people connect to that and they connect to my story, I feel like there's something bigger coming out of all of it. And it's not always easy, and I definitely have my moments of lying locked in the bathroom on the floor crying, hiding from the kids. But I think we all do, like everybody does, and that's what I feel really proud of being able to share, because when people connect to me just being a normal person, you know, all our other top athletes in New Zealand, we're just ourselves. We're equally as capable as everybody else, but also perhaps equally as vulnerable. And when others connect to that, it helps them to set goals too. And I like being a part of that.
Yeah, Rachel, can I just say that you are so inspiring, and your story is so raw and real, and it's been so good to be able to follow your story through Zoe. Thank you for sharing it.
No problem.
Yeah, it was an absolute privilege, Rachel, to be able to have shared your story and that journey, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do next year.
Oh, look, I'm just so thankful for, I guess, the pride that Kiwis take in all our athletes, and you know, and the togetherness that brings, and I really feel that when I'm competing and when I'm training. My hometown, Wanganui, and my Taranaki team, who I'm a part of for competing nationally. I'm just so thankful for who we are as a country and the way we get behind all our athletes and support them, and that's definitely affected me and given me an extra boost when I'm feeling the push of it all as well. So, yeah, a huge shout out to everyone who gets behind Kiwi athletes.
That was para-climber Rachel Maia. You can find the full feature article and interview at rnz.co.nz website. Just search Fair Play. Well, it's almost it for this month's episode, but it's not fair play without an update to the toilets at the Basin Reserve. Ooh, last month we heard how the Wellington City Council's team were running out of patience with my questions. This month I asked how many toilets are being brought in over the summer period, and the Wellington City Council says I have to go to Wellington Cricket or NZC to get that response. I also asked what they're doing about the toilets at the southern end of the ground and the northeastern side. They said I'd have to go to the Basin Reserve Trust. So I guess they're not really answering my questions, but don't worry, I'll bring you more next episode. And that's it for Fair Play. Suzanne, thank you again for being here. It's always wonderful.
Thank you so much for including Locker Room in this amazing project. That was it was all you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've been so lucky actually to have so much support, and I'm a true believer in collaboration, not competition, when it comes to doing important work like this.
Absolutely agree.
I want to say thanks again to Louisa Wall, Sophie Devine and Rachel Maia, and a big thank you to all the incredible women who have been on the show, not just this year, but for the past 3 years. Yes, that's how long Fair Play has been going. I also want to say a very big thank you to the team at RNZ who provide studio space for me to record Fair Play, to my wonderful co-host Suzanne McFadden, who has been my written content editor this year. Your words of wisdom are always appreciated.
You are most welcome, Zoe.
And to Chris Stafford, Fair Play executive producer and WiSP Sports founder, who has been with me from the very start. And of course, a thank you to you. Without you listening and engaging, Fair Play just wouldn't exist. Words can't express how grateful I really am to have your support and to know that there's a very large audience out there interested in women's sport. Fair Play will be taking an extended break over the New Zealand summer. I'm off to watch a lot of cricket, but we'll be returning in the new year bigger than ever before. Don't forget, you can join the conversation at RNZ, at Locker Room and at WiSP Sports. I'm Zoe George. Don't forget to play hard, but play fair.